When it comes down to JRPGs, the Atelier series is still a series I really want to get into. And for those who have been following the channel, I mirrored a very similar line just a little over a year ago when I sat down to play and review my entry into the series, Atelier Ryza, Ever Darkness and the Secret Hideout. Well, I haven't really gotten around to exploring other entries in the Atelier series just yet, but here we are covering its sequel, Atelier Ryza 2, Lost Legends and the Secret Fairy, which of course, to keep things simple, I will shorten to just Atelier Ryza 2. Before we charge on ahead, this review will contain minor spoilers of the first game, and it's recommended that you play the first game to truly enjoy this one. Also, for transparency, I was provided a code for this game courtesy of the publisher. Atelier Ryza 2 carries on from where things ended in the first game. 3 years have passed since Ryza and her friends all went their separate ways to pursue their dreams. Ryza still lives on Kirkin Island, and she still practices and uses her alchemy skills to help out on the island. One day she receives a letter from her friend Tao inviting her to come to the royal capital to help him investigate some ruins. Before she leaves, she's also instructed by Moritz Brunnen, the father of her friend Boss, to also investigate an unusual jewel which had been kept in their family for generations and had just started reacting recently. Once Ryza reaches the city, she meets up with Tao and Boss and a new adventure begins. Along the way, Ryza will meet up with old friends as well as make new ones as they go exploring the land hoping to find some answers about these ruins Tao have written about. The key focus to this game isn't just in exploring and fighting monsters, but with the alchemy mechanics where Ryza would gather ingredients and make items that would help her and her friends on their journey as well as those in need in the city. But is the game any good? Find out in The Good. The streamlined alchemy mechanics I enjoyed from the first game make a return, and not a great deal has changed, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Ryza's gathering tools have been simplified and they're multi-purpose right off the bat. These tools can be improved to increase the quantity and quality of the items that you can gather. Ryza also has access to new items which will allow her to reach other places throughout the game, as well as explore the different areas in much more detail. These items are introduced over the course of the story, and some can be improved to allow Ryza to collect even better items or access different areas that she couldn't get to before. As Ryza makes more items, she gains skill points which she can use to better her alchemy skills and unlock new recipes. Skill points can also be obtained by completing jobs on the bulletin board at the cafe in the city, as well as talking to certain people around the city that Ryza will acquaint herself with. Some skills and recipes are locked behind progression, so you will need to continue with the story if you want to unlock them. Being able to improve existing items Ryza has made, as well as duplicating items return, along with being able to convert unwanted things to get gems in order to power them up. Ryza can also infuse essences during synthesis to change the element of the item needed to make what you're working on. This also has its benefits, as infusing essences can affect the whole process or even push items beyond their limits as to what they can offer. Ryza can also sell items to her merchant friend Romy to get other merchants to start stocking new items if you're feeling particularly lazy, and later in the game you can even make seeds to grow into materials which you can harvest and use in your alchemy. I really do like how simple the alchemy is to get into, as well as how rewarding it is when you invest time into making the items the best they can be. The battle system has been reworked as well, but it still retains that sense of familiarity for those who have played the first game. Ryza and her friends can enter battle by making contact with an enemy wandering around on the map. She can also hit the enemy with one of her gathering tools to give her a slight advantage at the start of battle as well. Battles are played out in real time, and as Ryza and her friends attack, they'll gain action points, or AP for short. Each character can use skills which will use up a portion of action points, and if you have enough in excess you can chain skills together. As skills are used, Ryza and her friends will gain core crystal points. These points are spent using items that you assign to each character, and later in the game you'll have access to special attacks which require you to use a certain combination of items. The tactics level gauge also returns and is slowly filled when skills are used. As the gauge reaches each milestone, the maximum amount of AP will go up, allowing for longer strings of skills. When the tactics gauge is full later in the game, you will have access to fatal drives, which acts as a limit break of sorts. These special attacks will deal a large amount of damage at the cost of depleting the entire tactics gauge. As you fight, your party members may ask you to perform certain moves, and if performed they'll follow up with a skill of their own. Enemies and party members also have a break gauge that when filled would stun their character for a bit, allowing any hits made to them to be critical hits. I really do like what they've done with the battle system, and I think it's a good improvement on the first game. The key thing I enjoyed about the game though is how it handles character development. This was a core aspect of the first game, and it's just as detailed in this game. Ryza can engage in quests and side stories for her fellow party members, and certain people that she meets in the game who represent a group of people from the city, such as nobles, artisans, children, and even just ordinary folks. The game does flesh these people out, giving them a purpose as well as their own struggles and problems for Ryza to help them with. In terms of your own party members, while they grew over the past 3 years, they now have their own challenges as well as some interesting stories just waiting for you to discover, and I really enjoyed getting to know them, some again, and in more detail. It really makes you care more about these characters and truly makes them feel like friends than just someone who's tagging along. Even when exploring the ruins and piecing together the story of the ruins through clues left behind was really neat. It ties into the overall story and gives you more insight into what these ruins were used for, and even the problems the people back then had to face. Even little things like the comments that your party members make when you gather materials was a really nice touch. But the game isn't without its faults, and we'll discuss those in the bad. I found the game was a bit on the easy side, even when set to hard. Fighting enemies constantly will easily raise Ryza and her friends up to absurd levels, and making even bosses a walk in the park. The game also features a lot of mini-bosses, and it was getting to a point where I was so strong I couldn't fill the tactics bar to perform fatal drives because the enemies would just die before I could do it, or use special skills because one item in my combination of items would just simply kill the enemy. The only boss to really give me any grief was the game's secret boss, and without spoiling much, said boss wasn't too much trouble after a little more preparation on my end. The game does unlock harder difficulties once I'd finished it, but I had sort of wished these difficulty levels were in from the get-go to provide a real challenge. The mission variety hasn't really changed much from the previous game. As I mentioned earlier, you can take requests to help out people in the city from the cafe, and these range from collecting materials to making things and defeating monsters. Thankfully, the game has learned not to always make the monsters I need to hunt just meters away from where I can fast travel to. Instead, I have to explore the area and sift through palette-swapped enemies so I can find the ones I'm hunting. If you gather just about everything under the sun, you'll find that you can almost instantly turn in gathering missions for easy money, skill points and gold coins, which can be invested in more alchemy ingredients. Some missions are available in the form of notifications on your world map, and sometimes a questline may start when you wander into an area without a notification and are greeted with just one of many cutscenes you'll be viewing throughout the game. The mission side of things admittedly has improved, so it's more minor than anything. Other than that, no other real complaints here, so let's wrap things up with the opinion. I had a lot of fun playing through Atelier Ryza 2. It took the things I enjoyed from the first game and improved on them while keeping the things I liked a lot about the character development intact. While the issues I have with the game mostly mirrored what I had with the first game, it was still an enjoyable experience overall and was well worth the 60 plus hours I'd invested into it. The game does heavily promote the values of friendship and how strong the bonds with your friends are no matter how far apart you are, and even if you've just met them again for the first time in years. Of course, anyone who's into JRPGs will find some joy in this game, as well as other entries in the Atelier series, but I'm one to talk because I've yet to start any other game in the Atelier series. Anyway, as I've mentioned at the start of this review, it is recommended to play the first game to truly enjoy your experience with this one. So with that, it's time for my rating. I would give Atelier Ryza 2, Lost Legends and the Secret Fairy the 00XN Ryza out of 10. Sorry, old habits die hard. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for the next Infinite Backlog review. If you enjoyed today's review, feel free to check out some of our other videos and subscribe for more. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram and our Facebook page. Once again, thank you for watching.